we're living at a time when image making has become a science. And someone can create certain images and then use that image to twist your mind and lead you right up a blind path. An example, a few weeks ago I was on a plane traveling from Algiers to Geneva. And there were two Americans sitting beside me, both white, one a male and the other a female. I had met the male in the airport, and we had struck up a conversation. He was an interpreter who worked for the United Nations and was based in Geneva. The lady was with the American embassy in one part of Algeria. So we conversed for about 40 minutes between Algiers and Geneva. A nice human conversation. I don't think they were trying to be white, and they weren't trying to prove that they weren't white. They weren't particularly trying to prove anything. It was just a conversation between three human beings. I certainly wasn't trying to make them think I wasn't black, and it just didn't come into it. So after we had had this quiet, objective, friendly, sociable, and very informative conversation for about 40 minutes, the lady looked at my briefcase and said, I want to ask you a personal question. She said, what kind of name could you have, last name could you have that begins with X? I said, well, that's it, X, like that. So she said, well, what's your first name? I said, Malcolm. So she waited about 10 minutes, and she said, you're not Malcolm X? And I said, yes. She said, but you're not what I was looking for. And I told her right then and there the danger of believing what she hears someone else say, or believing what she reads someone else write, and not keeping herself in a position to see things and hear things and weigh them for herself. She was looking for someone who was out to kill all white people, who was a segregationist, a rabble-rouser, or irrational, an extremist, subversive, seditious, someone who couldn't hold a conversation with just anyone. This is what she was looking for, because she was looking for something whose image she only knew from what she had read by a very biased press, a press that has perfected image making to a science. And then they use these images to make people love whom they will and hate whom they will. Not based upon what the people themselves discover for themselves, but based strictly upon the image that the press wants to create and then project to the world.
Do you consider yourself militant?
I consider myself Malcolm.
They take one little word out of what you say, ignore all the rest, and then begin to magnify it all over the world to make you look like what you actually aren't. And I'm very used to that.
I've been silent for the past 90 days because of some statements I made concerning the President of the United States, which were distorted. They were distorted. And yes. And
what did you say, Malcolm?
Well, I said the same thing that everybody says, that his assassination was the result of the climate of hate. But only I said the chickens came home to roost, and which means the same thing. Climate of hate means that this is the result of something. And when I said chickens coming home to roost, chickens coming home to roost, I said the same thing.
But you did not say that you were glad the president was killed.
No, that's what the press said. What would I look like saying that I'm glad the president was killed?
Do you feel that your message, apparent message of love that you brought back from Islam is the real reason they're after you, because you're not hating as hard as they want you to?
Well, I never did hate anybody hard. But I do know that when I wrote that letter saying that there were white people in Mecca, it shook up a lot of Muslims, because most of the Muslims who follow Mr. Muhammad absolutely believed that it was impossible, physically impossible, I should say divinely impossible, for a white person to go to Mecca. And my trip there shattered that image.
But that's a considerable change of opinion in Malcolm X.
No, today I'm speaking for myself. Formerly I spoke for Elijah Muhammad. And everything I said was, Elijah Muhammad teaches us thus and so. I'm speaking now from what I think, from what I have seen, from what I have analyzed and the conclusions that I have reached.
Then the white man is no longer the devil, and he is no longer bound to be evil?
If I judge a man by his conscious behavior, I am not a racist. I don't subscribe to any of the tenets of racism.
The real religion of Islam doesn't teach anyone to judge another human being by the color of his skin. White, black, brown, red, yellow, it doesn't make any difference what color you are.
As far as this apartheid charge that he attributed to me is concerned, evidently he has been misinformed. I don't believe in any form of apartheid. I don't believe in any form of segregation. I don't believe in any form of racialism. When a man whom they have been taught is below them has the nerve or firmness to question some of their philosophy or some of their conclusions, usually they put that label on us, a label that is only designed to project an image which the public will find distasteful. I'm a Muslim. If there is something wrong with that, then I stand condemned. My religion is Islam. I believe in Allah. I believe in Muhammad as the apostle of Allah. I believe in brotherhood of all men. But I don't believe in brotherhood with anybody who's not ready to practice brotherhood with our people.
I think probably you have sometimes, it seemed to me, been preaching hate to meet hate.
I don't advocate any kind of hate.
You have called for self-defense units, rifle clubs, ready to execute on the spot those who threaten Negroes.
I don't think that I said that.
Yes, you did.
No, I don't think I said that.
All right.
I have called for rifle clubs that I think Negroes should, in areas where the police, whether it be federal, state, or city, have proven their inability or their unwillingness to defend Negroes, the lives and the property of Negroes, then it's only intelligent and it's only right that Negroes protect themselves, and I have encouraged them to buy a rifle and a shotgun, which according to the Constitution is legal.
Well, that's something of an argument, but I've heard speeches made by some of the people of your group. I think I've heard you make speeches. It seemed to me that you were advocating, well, I would have to describe, I think, as violence to meet the serious injuries that have been done your people, with which I totally agree.
I don't call that violence. I don't in any way encourage black people to go out and initiate acts of aggression indiscriminately against whites.
Now, you said in the end of 1963 that 1964 will be a very explosive year, and in many ways, Mr. X, it has. Has it been as explosive as you would have hoped?
That's not the question. Has it been as explosive as I would have thought? It wasn't as explosive as I would have thought. I think the miracle of 1964 was the ability of the American Negro to restrain himself. I have never advocated any violence. I've only said that black people who are the victims of organized violence perpetrated upon us by the Klan, the Citizens Council, and many other forms, we should defend ourselves. And when I say we should defend ourselves against the violence of others, they use their press skillfully to make the world think that I'm calling on violence, period.
Would you agree that you're on the lunatic fringe of the American Negro movement?
Malcolm has no place to go, which is why he's floundering so badly. For example, he's been breaking bread with the communists downtown.
Wait a minute. What communists have I been
Socialist Workers' Party.
You're absolutely out of your mind. I have never broken bread.
You have given several speeches which they have
that's not
reprinted.
Bread. I speak anywhere. I spoke in London, England.
You were very proud to go back several times, and they're reprinting one of your major addresses in a militant
church. I spoke in a church in Rochester a couple nights ago. Does that make me a Methodist?
We're not talking about churches. We're talking about the Socialist Workers' Party.
Just because you speak somewhere doesn't make you that. You speak to the public, and you speak on any platform.
Oh, I don't, Malcolm.
And I speak to the public, and I speak on any platform.
Okay,
if speaking on the socialist platform makes me a socialist, then when I speak in a Methodist church,
a communist platform.
I was in Selma, Alabama last week speaking in Martin Luther King's church. Does that make me a follower of Martin Luther King? No, your line of reasoning, sir, doesn't fit me.
Well.
the Organization of Afro-American Unity, which I'm presently involved in, are having a rally, and you are welcome to attend that. White, black, brown, red, yellow, green, or whatever else you have. And I think you'll find that despite the fact that we get no help whatsoever from the press, that we're able here in the New York area to attract larger crowds to our rallies than any other kind of rally that's given, and they are given the complete support of the press.
But Malcolm, you say attempts have been made on your life, and that was at this afternoon's press conference. You say 5 different attempts recently. How were they attempted?
Yes, more than 5.
Of course, there was the bombing of the house, which you know about. That occurred Sunday.
I guess first I would like to point out about that bombing of the house, because the press has also been used during the past week to imply that I bombed my own house. I would like to point out right here and now that I have no life insurance. My wife has no life insurance. I have 4 baby girls, none of whom have life insurance. We don't have health insurance. We don't have fire insurance. And the only group that stood to gain anything from the bombing of that house was the Black Muslim movement, in which the insurance is actually the insurance is in their name. And I really felt hurt that the press would allow itself to be used to give the public the impression that I would throw a bomb or light a fire to a home in which my wife and family are asleep. The only time Elijah Muhammad gets favorable publicity is when it's against me. They side with him in anything his followers do, as long as it's against me. When I jump out and say that somebody is trying to kill me, the implication is given that I'm trying to do some publicity seeking, or that I'm just making these stories up. But our police department, from coast to coast in this country, have the Black Muslim movement well infiltrated, just as they have any other group well infiltrated. They are well aware of these plots and discussions that take place. They could stop them if they wanted.
Malcolm, as a member of the Rise, has anything to do with Malcolm X? You're news.
Sir, but here's the point. I'm news as long as what the news is about is something to project me in the image of someone with horns. But when it comes to objective reporting on things...
Hello, I'd like to address my question to Malcolm X.
Go right ahead.
Hello, Malcolm?
Yes, sir.
I don't mean to sound rude, but aren't you kind of a hypocrite because you went all around the country preaching for the black Muslims?
No, I think I'm quite honest, because as long as I believed in what Elijah Muhammad was teaching and what he represented, I represented him 100%. Now, I know how bad it makes me look to tell you today what Elijah Muhammad is doing. That does not concern me. As long as I believed in him, I represented him. But there were things about Elijah Muhammad that his followers right now know, and that I know. That when he became faced with it, he didn't stand up to it as a man. And when he failed to be able to stand up to his own problem as a man, it was then that those of us who left the movement realized not only was he not divine, but he wasn't even a man. And it was then that we began to re-examine all of what he taught. And I was fortunate enough to be able to go into the Muslim world and discuss the whole situation with the Muslims there. And since then I have been trying to practice the orthodox religion of Islam. And I don't think it's hypocritical at all for a person to be wrong and admit that he was wrong.
am well aware of what I'm setting in motion by what I'm saying up here tonight. I'm well aware. But I have never said or done anything in my life that I wasn't prepared to suffer the consequences for.